Welcome to a new video. This time it's about Mualani. Not Kitching, not Yoimiya, no, Mualani. Why am I doing this? Not to showcase my Mualani, because my Mualani is very cracked at the moment, but actually to show off a team that I think gets a bit, yeah, not well represented. It's, as you can see, a burn vape Mualani. And yes, it does get credited in a lot of Mualani guides, but usually on the side. And mostly like, yeah, you can use Emily with any pyro character like Deya, Xiangling, Thoma, or even Xinyan. And then you can use like, yeah, a fourth character like Candace. But I personally like this setup a lot, and I think this setup has like one of her best potentials. I personally tested out with double hydro with Mona, for example, and I didn't even get the same numbers as I did with my account. But my account is very high invested, so I was like, how can I maybe showcase this team on a lower account? And that's where my mom's account actually comes in, because this is my mom's account, which is way less invested, but also a bit invested, so we have to talk about it. Let's go over the characters first though. Why do I like Thoma? I like Thoma a lot in this team because he fulfills two roles basically. He is your shielder that protects you from getting interrupted and also from taking damage. His shield though is a bit weak, so sometimes damage goes through, or let's say a lot of times the damage goes through actually. But we will address that issue later. Though, the other point is, once you have his C6, you have a normal attack bonus for 15% for 6 seconds, which is always when he refreshes his barrier from his ult. Once you have his ult up, you always refresh it once you attack with Mualani, so you constantly have a 15% attack bonus. Which is not attack bonus, normal attack bonus. Which is really, really good, actually. It kind of compares to Candace's buff, but I think Candace gives you like 20%. But Candace only for a few seconds, so that doesn't refresh. So in the end, this is just a more consistent buff in my opinion, compared to Candace. And of course, once you have C6 Candace could actually steal your vapes. Beforehand, it's not that much of an issue. So Candace is actually still a fine partner, but Thoma does 2 of the jobs. So I really like that. The other thing, Kazuha. Kazuha is C2 on my mom's account, which is why we will nerf him. We give him the sacrificial sword, and we also swapped this artifact to energy recharge and this artifact to defense, just so that we don't have as much elemental mastery. Because usually with the umbrella sword and with elemental mastery artifacts, he gets over 1000 elemental mastery. So we put him on almost 500 only, so that when we use our Nahida's burst, she will only give out way less elemental mastery, which probably should mitigate the 200 elemental mastery we get. That's how I'm kind of like trying to get around the C2. But that's also the next point. Once you have Kazuha on C2, he is a crazy support for Mualani, because 200 elemental mastery for her is really, really good, obviously. But anyway, his other role, obviously, is to be the AoE pyro applier, exchanging Xiangling, basically. Also, you can swirl his first, swirl Hydro as well, and then Mualani's first Shark Bite will get a benefit. The ones after not, because the buff runs out, but you get one good hit with Mualani in, which is really good if you have C1 especially. Or maybe even C2 to get the first hit earlier, so the setup is easier. But vaping her first hit, which is increased already, is a massive increase. So even then, Kazuha at C0 with a C1 Mualani is really, really good already. Once you get C2 though, it's just crazy. But yeah, basically Thoma Kazuha is your AoE pyro application, because Thoma's pyro application against multiple enemies is kinda iffy, because you only hit the enemy directly in front of you and the ones really close to it. So sometimes you don't even hit all of the enemies. For example, in the new Obsidian domain, you don't hit all the 3 golems, you only hit 2, and then the third one gets a way weaker hit from Mualani because you didn't vape him. And Kazuha basically just says, yeah, no issue, we have you. We have that. Also, it allows us to run Nahida with an instructor set, because Kazuha is the one who has all the elemental mastery. So she doesn't really need much, and I also didn't level her much. Her instructor set, I just put it on. And she actually uses the prototype Ember as well. And that's how we deal with the damage that goes through Thomas' shield. Because we can just use Nahida to heal ourselves. Then for the main star, Mualani, my mom has the Sacrificial Jade, which is like a really, really good option for her if you don't use her own set. Because my mom doesn't farm artifacts really well. She doesn't really have a set for her. So, yeah. We are using Shimenawa, which is basically one of her best artifact sets as well. And not many people are talking about it, again. But you just get a 50% normal attack bonus. Yes, you can't use your burst very often, but like Mualani's burst isn't really the biggest issue until you have C4, to be honest. Yes, her burst is good damage, but it's still like negligible. Like, you can just start your combination again and then do the 3 Sharky Bites. They are really similar, especially once you have C1, your Shark Bites are way, way stronger than your burst. And even now, with my Mualani, which is C4, I kinda still don't like her burst too much. It's a bit stronger than her second and third bite, but it's still like not the craziest thing. But it's fine, it's really good still, of course. But the Shimenawa set is a really valid option, and especially then you can use a crit rate weapon, and then we have a stat line like this. 95%, we should hopefully vape everything. And yeah, let's try out and see how this works. We will do the first half, obviously, because the second half has the Hydro guy in there, and that's kinda annoying to play. So we will do that. Alright, let's see what's waiting in the Abyss for us, and see how it's going. I already prepared it, so let's go in. Of course, we have to admit we take max HP, of course, because max HP increases us. We have to admit or realize we do get a really strong Abyssal buff for Mualani this time around, but the IT buff, the Imaginary Theater buff, went out, so we are kind of on the middle ground now. So this Mualani is a bit weaker than it was in my old video where I two-shot the Dendro boss at the end, but it should be still fine. Alright, I'll do a little cut, just so if I have to reset, I can reset. So, we'll be right back. The reason why I cut here, and it happened several times, I'm going to admit it, I screw up my rotations as well. Especially because my Mualani is C4. I get the C2 special where I can just attack right away after I got my first hit. And I'm kinda used to that now, so I just in several cuts before that we cut out here, I just attacked with like 1 or 2 stacks, and of course I didn't get any damage there. But yeah, for the first chamber we won't do the full rotation. I will show that on actual bosses. But here we are going to do a very standard thing and don't really care about swirling with Kazuha. Or at least not swirling with Hydro. That we just do her. Get this going. And just get this through. Then against him, we want to vape him several times, just like this already. scoot up a bit. But here we can see the heal of Nahida actually works pretty well. Now we just finish the job. And yeah, it works pretty well. Off to the next chamber. So, on to the next chamber. We will go for the 100% crit rate here. So let's take that. Let's see how we can do it. This time I am going to try to show you the full rotation. We just add some small thing in, which will be this basically. But later on, because we want to do that against the boss, of course. Oh, screwed up. That's fine. And we can still use our burst here. Back to this. So that's the whole thing. And now I'm actually just going to collect some energy for the next chamber so I can show it off a bit more. Because, yeah, you can see it works really well. But on the next chamber I will show you the full rotation when we have only a boss, because it's kinda awkward to set up if we have enemies beforehand. So, let's see how it's going then. Energy recharge is pretty nice, just to have Kazuha a bit earlier, as well as Thoma. So, let's see how this is actually going out. So, for this one we want to start with Nahida, basically, just so we can have the first hit earlier on. On my team it will be shown later how much of a difference it does, but for now let's see how much it does on my mom's team. So we want to start off with Nahida, then use Mualani to swirl with Kazuha, then we swap to Thoma, just do a few normal attacks, and then we go with this, and bam, 500,000. And now it's a bit weaker because we don't have the swirl anymore, but it's still 300,000. And now we just don't care about swirling anymore, we just want that one hit, basically. Oh, that was a little bit too fast. Yeah, that's about it. Really comfy, even with not that great of a team. And of course, as I said, when you actually keep Kazuha on a higher note, it's really, really strong. So, if I were to have just Kazuha C2, I mean, the team would still be pretty okay. Let's see. I think usually he had this on, and then he had this weapon instead, and I think that's like his usual thing. Nahida would give me way more elemental mastery, and the team would be just a bit stronger. So, like, the investment is still pretty normal, I'd say, in this situation. So let's see how much damage we do with just a bit more elemental mastery on Kazuha, right? Alright. I need to fight all this stuff again, but yeah, I'll be right back. Alright, now let's see if there's any difference, and if so, how much? $534. So not very much difference. I think that hit is a bit stronger though. But yeah, and still way less under a minute. Pretty good. Now, let's see how much it changes when you actually have a higher team. And now we are off to the main show. My own account. Differences are very clear. My Mualani has way more HP. She has an R2 of her own weapon. She has the obsidian set, which is actually what also is a thing not many people are talking about. HP circlets are really good for Mualani, especially if you don't use double hydro. So yeah, that's a really interesting thing. Hydro Golbat, HP Sand, and then just two other good things. A lot of HP. Sadly not as much crit damage, but that's fine. Also Constellation 4. We probably won't see what her C4 does this time because the enemy will die beforehand. Also, I crowned her skill and burst. Then on Kazuha we have C2 again. We also have the Viridescent Venera as usual. We have the Freedom Thorn, which just increases your Elemental Mastery, I think. Normal attack damage by 16%. So yeah, the attack buff is not that important, but we get another normal attack bonus by 16%, similar to Thoma. Our Thoma is actually lower level, but yeah, has HP and energy recharge as I said. C6. And what's actually funny is my burn does a bit more damage because now he does C2 as well. But she's also an instructor. And yeah, my Kazuha just has a bit more elemental mastery. On that topic, I did check the damage difference, and with the higher elemental mastery Kazuha on the second run that I showed just now on my mom's account, we had like 20,000 damage more. It was like 514,000 and then we had like 537,000 or something. Yeah. So 20,000 extra damage just by having more elemental mastery on Kazuha. Pretty neat. Anyway, let's see what this does now. We are going to skip right away to the big boss though. So yeah. Alright, and here we go. We actually have a bit worse cards because we have one energy recharge card at the start and then we had a HP card. So we don't have the crit card here. But it really doesn't matter at that point. Because yeah, I'm very strong. Anyway, I'm going to show it twice. Once with, once without Kazuha Q, I mean. Should be fair enough, I guess. And once with swirling and once without swirling. Yeah. Let's see how much damage we do without swirling here. Without swirling hydro. So we can just do this right away. And bam. 1,003,000 and 600,000 basically. Now let's see how much damage we do when we use Kazuha's burst. Almost 30k more. And now let's see what happens when we swirl with Kazuha, when we swirl the hydro with Kazuha as well. $184,000. So just for this little attack, it's already really good. And as you can see, I actually had the buff on the second one as well. So with C2, a Kazuha swirl goes a long mile and deals a lot of damage. You could see how much damage we just did. We 3-shot this guy. Now, let's show the ult as well, just so you can see how much the ult does. So we do 1C1 hit and then the ult. Yeah, that didn't work out, so let's try it again. As you can see, it's almost the same damage, like my second hit with the normal attack. Yes, I can do that later on, so it has a bit more buff, but yeah. Let's try it once more, where I do 1, 2, and then the burst. And there we go. I didn't really see the number, but I can slow it down and show you the number here. But yeah, that works pretty well. I would say this team is really strong. It's comfy, it's easy to set up. Yes, if you do the swirl with Kazuha, you could see it. My damage went from, what did we do, like 160 to 1,600,000 to 1,800,000, so 200,000 more. So it's really good for C1, but it's not that mega important. It's still great, but it's like not the most important thing. But it's really nice to go on. So the more you invest in this team, if you really like Mualani, you will probably get her C1 or maybe even C2 at least. And from that point on, Kazuha's swirl is really good, or Sucrose's swirl as well. And then of course, if you have Kazuha C2, Mualani just profits a shit ton of it. I don't know why people like to disregard this team. This team is really strong. As you can see, even on low investment, it was pretty easy to beat anything with it, and it was still very comfy. Toma makes it very comfy. Nahida can get prototype Ember, and having the pyro on many enemies with Kazuha's burst is no issue at all. You just have to make sure that they all have enough energy recharge, and everything is good. They need way less than jungling, definitely. So yeah, that is my video about this team that, in my opinion, not enough people talk about. Even in the Mualani main server, in 2 of them, there's like usually the opinion of, yeah, your team is pretty good, but usually only because you have high invested characters. That's why I made this video with a low investment and with a high investment. And I hope that maybe more people can appreciate this team, because, I don't know, pulling a Shilonen now, while probably almost everyone has a Kazuha, feels kind of weird. Yes, people say maybe they need Kazuha in another team, but the same could be said about Shilonen. Just put Shilonen in another team and use Kazuha for this team, because in my opinion, Mualani profits way more from Kazuha's burst than many other teams usually do, thanks to the pyro application. And Shilonen will give you another character in the party which doesn't apply pyro, so if you add a Candice there as well and you Shilonen and Candice, to get your Hydro Resistance Shred, which is better than and longer than Kazuha's Shred, but then you are stuck with one more slot for Pyro, and that one Pyro slot can't be Thoma, can't be Deya, and basically has to be Xiangling, who doesn't bring anything else on the table. And I don't know, I don't like that much. Of course, maybe we get Morvika, which is just even better Pyro application, but we don't know yet. There are some speculations about her giving your, like, giving enemies always a Pyro infusion, basically, that you can always vape or whatever, or always have burning. But those are really just speculations. These aren't even leaks or anything. So who knows what Morvika will do? So maybe Morvika is a second Xiangling with a buff. That would be also great for Mualani. But at the moment, this team is just my personal favorite. And I hope maybe one or two of you can see why. And maybe adapt it as well, try it out, and see if it works for you. Anyway, thank you for watching. We'll see each other next time again when I maybe have some idea to make another Genshin video, because I'm not really doing them very often. But for this, I really wanted to show it. So yeah, see ya around. Bye bye.